we were just discussing how the event went, and make approve the motion. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. So item number three, public input. The public's invited to present petitions, make announcements, or provide other information that's the commission to the commission that is relevant to the scope of authority of the city of Blue Lake that is not on the agenda. Commission may provide up to 15 minutes public input session. Assure that To assure that every individual presentation is heard, the commission may uniformly impose time limitations of 3 minutes to each individual presentation. Public will be given the opportunity to address items that are on the agenda at the time that the commission takes up each specific agenda item. So is there any public comment at this time?
Well, to reintroduce myself
Great.
and to hopefully put my concerns on the agenda for the next time or the subsequent meetings. I thought it might be good to find out if this is the appropriate place to address my concerns first.
Okay.
Actually, it was suggested to me by city council member that I come here, and I was just talking to them about some concerns. My name's Karina, and I live at 171 Broderick Lane. So I'm just going to give you a summary of my concerns that we could dive into deeper at a time when we make time for that, because I realize it's not going to happen here this time. So I'm following up on a meeting that we had on February 12th, 24th this year after the flood event that happened in Blue Lake. And I wanna I've been doing a lot of research myself because my property flooded. My house, the crawl space filled up, and I had to remove. Well, there was some damage underneath my house and my whole yard. I lived there 20 years, and that's never ever happened before. So this was an extreme event. But I've also been I am aware that there were some infrastructure failures, and I've been doing some investigating, calling Caltrans, the county, and it just everybody was pointing to somebody else, whereas it's private property or city property, but I didn't get anybody to like actually address my concerns, about like what's happening, what's going on with the culvert, what about the creek. So I've just been kind of trying to target the different people who might be responsible for these different aspects of the drainage, right? That was overwhelmed by that event. So I am following up from that meeting where, of course, that was just it was too soon to be able to address everything. The solutions weren't going to come up within a month of that. But since then, it's been 10 months now, and I found out that the Powers Creek restoration project that was supposed to begin this year, but there were some problems with the proposal that they submitted. It was not accepted, so the grant money is now going to planning, and it's out. It could be out many, many years. So, and I went to that meeting on Saturday that they had for property owners that were impacted by the creek. So it was a 4-hour meeting I got a lot of information. So there's several different infrastructure systems that are connected to that flood that I've been investigating. One is the county culvert. There's a private culvert and a county culvert that was not able to compensate for the failure of the private property culvert. And since then, county supervisor has confirmed to me that culvert's too small and it needs to be replaced. Powers Creek drainage, I've been walking that creek for weeks now, and it's a mess. And nobody's getting in there. And I have to be honest, I have been going in there and untangling the jams that are in there, and it's a lot of work, but the creek needs to be able to move. There's drainage problems in the intersection between Charlton and Broderick that I've been documenting. I've been videographing that when it rains. Um, there's drainage issues on the east side of Crush Hall that impact mine and my neighbor's property. There's no drainage system at all. It just comes right down off of that huge roof and it floods our property in the back. So my question is, and I'm going to write this out in a much more thorough letter. I've been working on this for a while, but I just wanted to plant the seed and let you know what's up, what I've been thinking about, and what I'm concerned about in terms of the safety of myself and my property with regards to potential flooding. Is who's responsible for these drainage systems? Who can I work with to address these problems that impact my property and safety and my neighbors? But I'm not, I don't want to speak for them, but I know that it impacts them too. How can me and my neighbors stay informed and be included in strategies to protect us and our properties? And what systems are there for residents to access support during and post-flooding events? Since we know that that's a really vulnerable area now. I mean, I've been here 28 years. I have actually, Bobby, your article came after the flooding, and we talked for a long time. She says, I've been here, you guys have been 40 something years. She's never seen anything like that down there. So it was an extreme event, but that doesn't mean I couldn't do it again. Because it happened. And I just, yeah, I mean, I have some requests or ideas about follow-up from the city officials after events, so we can work together to come up with mitigation strategies and support. Because we were there on the ground, and I wish I could have. I tried to talk with the city engineer. I tried twice we had a meeting time, and he didn't show up. I need people to see what happened because nobody saw how the water flowed through my property. It would be good for that to be mapped out. Yes, it would be good to have that mapped out so we know what happens actually when properties flood from these infrastructure failures and extreme weather events, that are compounded by that. My question is this a public safety issue? It seems to me, Chris Edgar, who's a city council member, we talked for quite a while when I was down at the creek and we were looking at the creek thinking like, what can residents do? If nothing's going to happen with the matter of alliance for this year or years to come, then what can we do to help keep the creek flowing? And he suggested that I come and speak with you first before I go to the city council, because you're the people who will make recommendations, and if we can sit down and come up with strategies. I'm willing. I've already been doing the footwork. I'm going to be meeting with Steve Madrone, our supervisor, to talk about getting that culvert, making that a priority. I'm willing to write letters. I'm willing to write letters to the state agencies to make sure funds get funneled to this community. And if this isn't the right place to be having this discussion, can you help point me in the direction of who I can work with the city and with the county and with whoever can help us to protect ourselves?
Thank you. First of all, is there any other public comment?
May I answer Katrina?
Before we have to make sure there's no public comment first,
Okay.
and public comment then. So I guess yeah, now we can engage
Okay.
if you'd like.
When did you move in there, Katrina?
In 1996.
Okay, well,
Right after that Carla's place flooded that.
yes, you're
I
aware.
wasn't here during that one.
You're aware. Okay, that was
Yeah.
yes. That's somewhat true. Um, the other thing is that's a historic low spot now. I mean, that wasn't the first time Broderick and Charlton had flooded. And what culvert are you working on? What?
It's the culvert behind the gas station.
Oh, it's all the way up there.
That's a 4-foot culvert. I talked at length with the county about this. And then it drains down into a much smaller culvert. And it could not handle the capacity because that culvert was jammed. So that culvert needs to be changed, and the supervisors know that.
So
So
first,
I'm
Okay.
first of all,
Okay.
Mandy, should we do this as another agenda item, or do you want to address anything?
Yeah, so I would recommend that you do this as a future agenda item, because it's not agendized, so you can't technically discuss it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that would be the best way to do that. And of course, staff is, working on these issues as well. We had all those same concerns and dealt with the same flooding of our infrastructure as well throughout that event. And so we have been in contact with, Caltrans and the county, and everyone's kind of working to remediate that issue. In fact, I know the state was up on the hill the other day working on the culvert system and as well. So, but yeah, a future agenda item would be the best place to be able to address that.
can we take this quick? I can be updated on what's going on. So, for some, like if I know, because I don't have any information and it is impacting me. And to be honest with you, I'm super, super stressed about this since January. I've been really messed up, really afraid, really worried about my. I have a fixed income. Flood insurance is really expensive, and I've never been required to have flood insurance with my mortgage. I'm not in, there's a line drawn, and I'm not in that flood zone. So I am really stressed about it. It's really scary. It was really scary. It could have been a lot worse, but that was scary enough for me to see all that water pouring into my yard, into my crawl space, not knowing if it was going to come into my house. And luckily, it stopped raining, but it could have maybe. Yeah, so I'm pretty like hyper compulsive about trying to find solutions and calling people, and I just haven't gotten the information that makes me feel confident that anything's happening, and we're on the rainy season again. So I've been down in the creek just untangling those knots. I'm not altering the creek at all. There's some really bad jams in there. I've been in there muscling now. Anyway, I can keep the water going.
We'll put this on for the next meeting and see if we can get you some answers.
Yeah, in the meantime, if there's some way to update me on what's happening, I am going to be in touch with county supervisors, but
Okay.
that'd be great.
Right.
So will I hear from somebody then about that, or is that, about what's happening as far as those two?
Yeah, we can make a bigger effort to provide you updates as staff is making those improvements and contacts.
All right. Excuse me.
So then I'll just assume that it'll be on the agenda for next, or do I need to do something official for that?
Nope, it'll be there.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on. If there's no other public input, to item number 4, the approval of August meeting minutes. So,
I'll move to approve the August meeting minutes.
I'll second it.
any public comment on the minutes from August? Okay. Well then, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. The motion carries. Item 5, road construction and traffic calming project update discussion. Looks like they've made some progress and things.
Yeah, so we are at the tail end of the project on Greenwood. And I wanted to give you guys an update. We were supposed to pave last week, but we got some pretty good rain, so that pushed our paving schedule back. We were just this morning we verified that we are on for paving for Wednesday and Thursday of this week. Um, and at the same time, we'll be paving the bike park as well. So if anyone is super interested in a really fun volunteer opportunity on Wednesday and Thursday. Learning how to lay asphalt on a bike park is a great opportunity, and I encourage everyone to head to the bike park. They're going to be starting at 7 a.m. It's going to go all day for 2 days. Hopefully, we can get it done in 2 days, but we will be running trucks in coordination with the Mercer Fraser trucks paving Greenwood and sending asphalt trucks out to the bike park. We got a really amazing donation from Mercer Fraser, donated all of the trucking for the asphalt, and which put the paving kind of into our fundraising budget, and we were able to raise the money to be able to pay for that. So lots of good things happening on Wednesday and Thursday. It will be probably a 2 day pave. They're going to keep one travel lane open with controlled traffic. It'll be a full grind, and then we're going to be doing, I think it's a 4 inch install of the new asphalt. So that will be really nice, including the new speed table crossings. And then after that, we will be doing all the striping. We'll be doing 2 painted crosswalks up near the school, and those will be painted with the school colors. So those will be blue and gold. So I think that'll be really fun. It'll be a little bit of vibrancy coming in around the school, getting people's attention. We were going to do one with the colors of the rainbow, but unfortunately, we weren't able to get the paint. So we're going to stick with the Mustang colors, and we'll also be planting all of the bulb outs that you see that are open. Those will all be planted with native plants. We'll have 2 trees up at the top by the school, kind of as gateway trees coming in. We spec'd out some Acer maples. They're kind of a hybrid maple that's a little bit more column shaped and keeps its leaves and has really pretty colors. So, and then we'll have 2 trees down at this end by City Hall as well. Um, the sidewalk project has gone really well. That was a lot of work, and those guys did a great job. And so now we're kind of just at the tail end and gonna pave and stripe and button it up for the winter, and it should be complete. Um, as far as other traffic calming, after this project's done, we did receive a grant through HCOG to design and engineer a mini roundabout. And then our plan is to concentrate up near the post office by Kim's house and use that project to pay for the design and engineering that can then be applied to other locations. And one of the locations where we have been recommending is up on I Street. And possibly there might be some other locations where something like that could be applicable. So we just are a little maxed out on projects right now, and we're hoping that we're kind of closing down some good projects. The town square is almost done. Greenwood will be done. Our Prash Hall renovations are pretty well done. We just got the roof is complete. We're going to be putting on gutters, but most of the big projects will be pretty well done for the winter. So we'll kind of concentrate on some of the other projects that have been kind of pushed onto the back burner. But those are pretty critical, important projects as well. As we all know, we have a lot of issues um, with traffic related speeding and running of stop signs and different things, different types of intersections of uses that we need to address. And I don't know if it made it into your packet. I was just thinking this. We did have a letter from Debbie Coggins, who lives up in I believe the Third and I Street area. She's been in contact with me about traffic issues on I Street and her concerns, and that was something that was brought out when we did do the neighborhood invite of that neighborhood up there. She did subsequently follow up with a letter just basically stating, that she's got concerns about traffic in that area. It's a very wide street. It's a pretty high volume street. There's a tot lot in that area. Lots of kids, very residentially dense. And it's a very wide, open, straight stretch that people use to cut over. As we start to kind of slow traffic down in other areas, people start to look for other cutover routes, which I think just seems really weird because you don't get anywhere fast in Blue Lake, but that seems to happen. So she's very concerned about that area, and I did talk to her at length about options. We did talk about a four-way stop. We did talk about a roundabout, and she said she was very much supportive of any type of um, installation that would help to slow down traffic. So that project and the is it G Street, yeah, that one gets me confused because it goes to G to Hartman, um, are kind of our top two priorities for the winter. So. And yeah, and we are finishing up the we've almost finished up, I believe, the hatchery, the rest of the truck route design. So that'll go in for future applications for construction, but that will be also fully designed and engineered. And some of the projects that we're looking on that is the intersection of Taylor Way and Hatchery, moving the stop bars because right now the stop bars are pretty far back, so you literally stop and then you've got to roll through the stop or the crosswalk to be able to get out to see where traffic is. So part of that design is to fix that issue. And so that's something that we've been working on as well. Trying to think if we have, I believe that's all of the projects we have at this point.
The town square has been quite a hit. I've been seeing little kids out there having fun, and even the older kids
Yeah.
out there. That was pretty good. And then I saw someone with their dog
Oh,
too. Yeah.
yeah, we did say that it was fine for the dogs to play too. Yeah. Yeah,
Sweet. Yeah.
luckily we were able to get in a few sunny days too, so kids were able to use it and just kind of see, how it can be used. And but I saw some kids that, in fact, Jeff and Rachel Bird's kids, I think it was True and Sky. It was raining the other day, it might have been Saturday, and they had just come from the splash pad and they were soaking wet and they were shivering, but they didn't care. They were going to play in the splash pad. So
Oh, it's a pretty cool thing.
yeah. So I don't know if you guys have any questions about Greenwood. It's been a big project, and I think we've weathered it fairly well. Having a big asphalt paving project kind of hit kind of right towards the tail end and facilitating the trucks and stuff. And it surprisingly, I really thought we would get a lot more complaints, but I mean,
This time they haven't been that bad, and they're not dumping debris everywhere
yeah,
like the
well,
last.
because they've had to go real slow because of the projects. And that was one of the things that we talked about was, we can facilitate the trucks with the construction. That was all fine. We, but they were just going to have to go slow. And I think, it showed that you can still get your turns in and get, your deliveries out. You just got to go a little bit slower and it doesn't hurt anybody. So yeah, I've been really happy with kind of how things are going. Um, very few complaints just overall. We've been able to facilitate school drop-offs and pickups have seemed to be pretty smooth. We worked really closely with the school to make sure that, the bus route was all accommodated. And so, yeah, I think for a big project for us, I'm really happy with how it all went. And it
I
seems,
think it was very well handled.
yeah, I
I
think
think
they
the
did a good job.
workers were great.
Yeah.
They were really courteous
Mhm.
and helpful. I mean, it went really well. I mean,
Yeah, we definitely had some blips with like, traffic control. There were a few times where it was like, oh, we really should have a flagger right now. But, they kind of got their feet under them and, just trying to kind of figure out the route and, where people were coming from. But, they kind of learned the city pretty quickly. And I think everyone was just, I was just really proud of the community for, being understanding and recognizing that, yeah, this is a big project, some big impacts, and people have been really, really helpful and respectful, and so yeah, it seemed like it
Where
went.
it's closing down the main thoroughfare in town, it went really well.
Yeah, yeah,
And it looks, once it's all done, it already looks nice,
yeah.
and then once it's all done, it's gonna brighten it up.
Yeah, and if you get a chance, walk the sidewalk on the west side. And just, at first I was like, oh my gosh, it's not very big, because we had designed it to accommodate, kind of a multimodal approach.
What's there?
It's so nice and wide. And we don't have a bike lane on Greenwood. And we'll be doing some additional outreach and signage because we're really trying to discourage the bike riders coming into the city on Greenwood. We have the new trail. So we really want people to come. If you're coming in off the highway or off Glendale, we really want you to come to the roundabout, take that right, and then drop into the trail and come into town and not come down the straightaway because there's just, we just can't accommodate everything. And trying to put in a bike lane just wasn't possible. We've never had a bike lane, even though it was striped, it was a fog line, and people had assumed that that was a bike lane. But um, now we can accommodate, it's this the sidewalks were widened really specifically to accommodate the kids, not really to accommodate, all bikes coming in and out of town. Like I said, we really want to encourage them to use the Annie and Mary Trail and head out. So we'll be doing some more outreach and signage to help with that. But I think as far as the kids being able to, ride their bikes on this side and being able to accommodate, strollers and mobility scooters and different apparatus, I think it's pretty nice.
Um, our tanker came in when
Oh,
they were just doing the one down the road, and I'm watching, and this guy just got his license a couple months ago. He came in, made it look like he's been driving for years.
yeah.
He handled it quite well.
Yeah, and all of that was designed in partnership with the trucking company. So Kernan has the largest vehicle that comes in, and that's I can't even remember how big it is, but whatever it is, it's massive and it's a low boy. And so we specifically took that vehicle and because it's about the biggest thing that will ever come into Blue Lake, and we designed the route to accommodate that. So that middle section, I'd heard that there was, all these questions about it being like some kind of a barrier, or I heard drainage, and I heard all kinds of different things. It's really more of just a feature to delineate space because what we have is we have a lot of people who come in so fast, they cut that corner and they swing into the other lane. And so that brickwork, it'll be fairly flush with the pavement. It'll have a little bit of rounding, but not much. It really is just to remind people to stay in your lane, because if you have to stay in your lane, you also have to slow down coming around that corner, but everything is designed to be mountable for the trucks. So the morning we had installed the brickwork, and then the next morning, we knew Kernan was coming in at 5:30 a.m. with that low boy, and they said it was no problem whatsoever. So they just mounted it like it was meant to be, and they have to come in with traffic control on that, so that's all managed. And so yeah, so I've been really happy. We have had zero complaints from the truckers about any issues. No one seems to have a problem. The inner curbing is all mountable, and that was designed for the trucks to be able to do that. So, but as far as any type of passenger vehicle, if you've got a problem coming through there, then I think you've got bigger problems than the lane width because there should be there's no problem coming through there. I see trucks coming through there every day. They don't have to even hit the mountable curb. They can come and stay right in the lane. So yes, I think it's all working out well. Unfortunately, we got it all installed in the crossing down here, and then the asphalt trucks started coming in, so everything like turned black. I was like, oh. But once
Here's our asshole.
I know. Well, we did see some tires on the sidewalk up by the school. That was really an eye opener for the construction crew. They're like, there's tires on the sidewalk. I'm like, yeah, let me tell you. That's why we were designing these improvements. So, yeah.
Great. We'll move to public comment on item 5.
Do we know know when the paving is going to begin, what time and?
They are coordinating that with the school, so I believe they're going to be starting down at this end, so it'll probably be like around 8. It could be earlier for them to like be bringing in and staging their equipment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hmm.
All right, any other comments? All right, we'll move on to item 6, Public Safety Commission annual meeting after action report discussion. So we had public safety annual event in the park. Helicopter landed. We had music. We had a lot of great vendors. I think it went well. Working with Molly, I mean, no complaints. We talked about doing it every year, kind of keeping it as an annual thing.
I got lots of good feedback from the community. People, did I interrupt? Can I do it now? Everyone loved it. The helicopter was a huge hit, and all of the like touch the cars and stuff. That was all the kids loved it.
Oh,
Perfect timing for the fire.
Oh,
Right?
Yeah, that was great.
yeah, it was great. Yeah, that was Molly's idea on the touch truck event. It all fell together. So we have some ideas to expand that as well. Some other companies were like, we'd love to be involved in this, like tow trucks, things like that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, so we'll work on that. Um, there were a lot of vendors that we had invited that couldn't make it, but possibly next year. But yeah,
Um, something I thought was pretty cool was that some of the booths had, or there was one, I think it was the animal shelter. One of them was down here, and they were make sure you have your go bag for your animals. I never even would have.
is that
Poor
Dart?
Rudy.
Yeah, I
that
know, right?
I think that was Dart, Brian Dart,
Oh, yeah.
Dart, and his wife.
That was something. Yeah, I guess I gotta get my dog go bag and my cats and
If your animals have medications, make sure you have a supply of those to go. But,
it was a lot of fun.
great.
And did you have to pull off the strings to get the helicopter, or were you just like,
Not really. I actually got in touch with the right person, and they just made it happen. So I mean, we originally had the Coast Guard coming, and so the Coast Guard was going to land their helicopter, and that plan fell through like 2 days before.
oh
They
man,
had we have to go down to Mendocino County. We only have 2 helicopters, so we didn't get the helicopter. So I scrambled to get another helicopter. So Cal Fire was gracious enough to do that. So
That was great timing.
yeah, that worked out really nice, huh?
Yeah.
got a full demo on how they work too, right on camera.
Oh, he was there 5, 10 minutes. He did 3 runs, I think, before the first plane got there.
Mhm.
I mean, it was really quick and it made a difference. I mean,
Oh yeah,
right away.
yeah.
Yeah.
We were fortunate enough to not have an event like the previous fires. Yeah. All right. Any public comment on this safety event?
I was following uh, the meetings and trying to understand the process that went through as far as you guys had an ad hoc committee. And then it went on from there, and then the plan was made for the park activities. But I didn't see that coming back to the safety committee for discussion. I'm just curious.
As far as the park, using the park,
The whole
the whole event.
Because if for me, an ad hoc committee is one that you go and you get information and then you bring it back to the commission. And I didn't see that step. Am I wrong? That did not come back. You guys didn't have a meeting to discuss it.
We had discussed um, what did we have been working on? And because we had 3 meetings.
It's an ad hoc committee, and ad hoc committee goes out, gets information, and brings it back.
We did.
And
We did. We had 3 meetings before the event. After we had
Molly was here during that
Molly
too.
showed up as well. So we, it was Phil and I were working on the ad hoc committee. So we were working on some of the details out, and then we'd come back to the commission.
Okay, I just, it's a very good plan, but I didn't see the structure. That's all that I was, great, yeah.
Yeah.
Flyer show, that,
Well, that wasn't planned, but we didn't plan that. But
But anyway, I had a concern about that.
yeah, we had done that.
Structuring, you know, if you have an ad hoc committee and you're planning all that and then bringing it all back and having it solidified by the commission, that's the only thing that I was concerned about. Other than that, you know. kind of-
I think at the time you guys really only had 3 commissioners anyways going through that. So your ad hoc was almost your full commission.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't bring it back to a commission standing of, you know, the whole commission saying yes, you know,
Oh.
it's
So I very clearly remember you guys discussing what you're going to do, and then your ad hoc was going out to bring in the vendors and work with Molly to make all of that happen. You guys did articulate that on numerous occasions about wanting to do a public safety fair, and then you directed the ad hoc to make those outreaches in partnership with Molly.
And then,
Yeah.
That happened at 7.
And we did come back to the commission
yeah.
and discuss it on a couple occasions. So.
And then we didn't do a September meeting because the annual meeting was
Yeah.
our
September
meeting.
meeting.
And then last month I was sick, so we didn't have
Yeah.
one.
just an observation,
Okay.
you know, just that, we call it coordination.
All right. Well, thank you for your input on that. Any other comments? All right. So we will move on to item 7, the law enforcement services future partnership consideration.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring this to the Public Safety Commission this month. I apologize that this went through the City Council first, but it's kind of a fast-moving item that I wanted to make sure was getting to the council quickly so that I had clear direction on whether or not to be exploring options. So, as you guys know, we went through a pretty lengthy process to negotiate this year's law enforcement contract with Humboldt County Sheriff. Um, there were several areas of concern throughout the process that seemed to resolve themselves as we kind of got to the end point. One of the issues that did come up at the end, though, that has caused some issues and some concerns, especially for our risk management crew, Sierra, who we contract with for our liability insurance, is the indemnification language that the county is requiring the city to have in the contract. And basically, um, it's concerning to Sierra, it's concerning to the city because normally when you contract with someone, they indemnify you against liability because you're contracting with them for a service, you're contracting with them based upon their level of expertise. And so assuming liability for their actions is not is not a normal process. Unfortunately, this year in the contract that we have with the county did require that the city indemnify the county. Um, Sierra was part of the negotiation of the contract and pushed back pretty hard on this. This is the same language that Trinidad also has for their contract with the sheriff. Trinidad is also a member of Sierra. And so we, Sierra now has 2 entities with contract language that they're very concerned about, especially when it comes to law enforcement actions. We have no control over the deputies. We don't control scheduling, patrols, or anything like that. So there is some level of distance and and coverage of liability to some extent, but there is still some exposure through this contract language. So through our conversations, Sierra made some outreaches to some of the other Sierra member cities, including Ferndale. They talked to Arcata, talked to Eureka. We talked to Fortuna as well about options for future law enforcement services for some of the smaller entities. And Ferndale was really interested in working with Trinidad and Blue Lake as a small city. They're pretty similar in size to Blue Lake. Trinidad is also like we all have a lot in common. We have smaller populations. Our areas are a little bit out of the way, some open space. We're probably a little more densely populated. I mean, obviously, than Trinidad, and also Ferndale, but we're pretty similar in small business communities. And Trinidad and Blue Lake both have a casino. Ferndale has a casino fairly close by at Bear River. Um, and we have small operating budgets as well. So law enforcement starts to become very expensive for small cities to take on. We all know kind of what our past experience was. Trinidad had some of that same experience. And Ferndale puts a lot of resources to their police department. In fact, I think their budget is over, I want to say it's about 700,000. Um, our operating budget for the city is just over 900,000 total. But, we have a lot of parks and facilities that we upkeep that are a little different than how Ferndale, how their city is structured. So law enforcement is very important for Ferndale. They have a full-time chief. I think they have 5 deputies, and they have a really good program. But everyone's concerned about law enforcement. They're concerned about keeping deputies. They're concerned about cost controls. Everyone is poaching each other's deputies left and right. People are offering bonuses. Um, and it's becoming harder for smaller entities to be able to compete. So one of the thoughts in looking at this is, how this could be a benefit to Ferndale. And the Trinidad city manager and myself met with the Ferndale city manager and Chief Sly, the chief of Ferndale PD, and some of their deputies, and went down, toured their facilities, and kind of just got a feel for kind of what their thought process was, how they run their programs. And one of the things that Chief Sly mentioned was, that something like this could be a benefit to recruitment for him, instead of having officers who are just, working every day in a really small town in Ferndale. This would kind of give some opportunity to kind of expand a bit. The idea would be to hire 3 new deputies under Ferndale's jurisdiction, and how they would be assigned to Trinidad and Blue Lake. So they essentially would become something like a resident deputy program for us, and they would have dedicated space in each community, but they could backfill their deputies with the other Ferndale deputies. So essentially, you'd have a department of 8 to 9 to 10 people that Blue Lake and Trinidad could rely upon. Plus, Ferndale has partnership agreements with the other entities. So for call and response, backup services, that's all a service that we would be able to participate in. Um, it seems, for us right now with the sheriff contract, we have very little interaction with the sheriff system. We have no dedicated patrol. We're on very much on a call response program, and I don't see that changing. The sheriff is dealing with a numbers game as well. There's not enough deputies to go around. Costs are increasing. I anticipate that if we continue with the sheriff going into the next fiscal year, the costs will go up substantially, if we even could reach a point that we could agree on a contract amount. And I don't know that we could, just based upon the finances of the city. So I think it's imperative that we are pursuing creative opportunities. I really liked the Ferndale's commitment to their community. They're very much a community oriented police department. They They ride bikes, they walk the streets, they participate in the parades, they know all the businesses, they know the people. They've actually gone as far as having their deputies join the volunteer fire department. I thought that was really great because they said, our deputies are here in town when a lot of the volunteers are, at work somewhere else. And so Chief Sly has been very supportive of them making that connection to the fire department. So I thought that was a really great approach. And in fact, when we were meeting with them, I heard on the pager, I was like, oh, you guys are getting a call right now. And all of a sudden the deputy's pager went off. He's like, oh, I got a fire call, and so Chief Sly was like, yeah, go, go get it. Wait, where's it at? Like, what's happening? So yeah, so two of the deputies ran out to respond to a fire call, which I thought was really great. They are very active with their CERT team, which is something that I thought would be really beneficial to the city. We have a very active CERT program as well, but we don't really have, we have the fire department. I think Ed is in kind of charge of that liaison. The city facilitates and sponsors CERT. And then the fire department is the one who kind of manages the CERT program. But they have a really well established CERT program in Ferndale as well, really high numbers. And so they were really excited to hear that Blue Lake had a CERT team. And that was one thing that Chief Sly really was excited about, just the capacity that they've been building with their own program. So, just getting into kind of the nuts and bolts of things, we would be looking at probably a couple 100,000 to pay for services. We would also have to come up with a vehicle and space. There is some funding right now that we could write for. USDA Community Facilities actually has money to purchase police vehicles and to help build police stations and different things. And the city is eligible for that funding. So Sierra also mentioned that we'll be all receiving some additional grant funding that could be used to put towards gear, a vehicle, kind of help offset costs. So that would be something that we do need to look at. Trinidad is also just in the same position. They got a big reduction in their contract this year because the city and the sheriff were able to agree on a cost methodology based upon our per capita numbers. That methodology was also applied to Trinidad. So Trinidad's contract went down. I think their contract was only like 68,000 this year, and it was I think it was like maybe 240. So because of that, because of the position that that we took, Trinidad was a really big benefactor of that, but I don't think that is going to continue. So they are anticipating that their costs will go up exponentially as well. So we're all planning kind of for that. There's a couple of ways that this could happen. One of the ideas is the formation of Joint Powers Authority that would be kind of a larger umbrella organization. There is some interest from some other of our neighboring cities to participate in this program because we're all members of CIRA. It does give us some benefits through our liability programs. And Sierra is very interested in helping to facilitate this. So they've pledged and offered resources to help us come up and research and draft a JPA agreement. In the meantime, we could look at directly contracting with Ferndale to provide services like we are with the sheriff. So it would be a very similar contract agreement. In order to move this forward, the city really needs to start looking at resource allocation, writing for funding. Um, Trinidad and Ferndale, I believe, are taking this concept to their commissions and their council this month for discussion, but so far it seems to be pretty well received. So I wanted to bring this to you guys and kind of hear what your thoughts are. I would be interested in if you guys did want to form an ad hoc um, regarding this, just to kind of help staff, or if you had questions and you wanted to participate in some meetings, just to get more information. I'd be fully welcoming of that as well. But I think it's a real interesting proposal. It seems, obviously there's always going to be blips and bumps in the road. But right now, I think we're somewhat in a precarious state, and we need to be moving forward in a direction that anticipates um, that that things will get a little bit rockier in the coming year. So um, I was very, very excited to kind of have this as an option because I've been pretty worried about where we were going to go in this next upcoming fiscal year. So our contract is over in June 30th with the sheriff, and we have a 1-year contract. That was at the request of the sheriff department that we only contract for 1 year. Normally, I think we had 3-year contracts with options to add. And this time, I think because of the way the process went and some of the contentious nature of it, the sheriff recommended only contracting for 1 year, which I actually think that was totally fine. But I think it sets the stage and the tone for what we need to be thinking about. So
So we would have a Ferndale police officer basically working out of City Hall.
it wouldn't be a
And
Ferndale police officer. So what they would be proposing to do is create kind of like a subset of Ferndale and give it its own name. Um, um, they talked about, some different ways to designate this so that it wouldn't be Ferndale PD. They would be able to backfill with Ferndale PD. Like if someone's on vacation, then another deputy could come over and assume that. But they did really want to be able to differentiate that so that the community has that buy-in too. So if that's something working with Trinidad and Blue Lake, Trinidad and Blue Lake, we partner a lot. We share a building official. We've shared deputies in the past. We wrote Measure Z grants together and split deputies. So we have a really good working relationship with Trinidad.
it would be our car too, right? So
Mhm, Yep.
say whatever we wanted,
hmm
like police or whatever.
Yeah. 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 And we probably, I don't know if we would have it say Blue Lake. It might say like, you know, northern region something, but that way the car saying if they needed to go to Trinidad, or we could kind of share those resources a little bit, but it would definitely be differentiated from Ferndale.
So, but it would be Ferndale would be the liability end of it,
Right.
and then we would have like a deputy up here
So you'd have
as
like
a
an assigned deputy. So kind of similar to what the sheriff does, where they assign deputies, like resident deputies and things down what used to be like down in Garberville. They're part of the sheriff, but that's their territory. They work out there. So they really get to know the community.
kind of
They
like
know the space.
McKinleyville a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
would we just have one or have like a couple that we could rotate
Yeah,
through
so
and
they're proposing they would hire 3.
okay.
So we would each have one, and then we would have one that kind of rotated through. So, you wouldn't have someone patrolling 24/7 necessarily, but you would have a much higher level of patrol. And we would have patrol when we need it because we would essentially be at the table, kind of directing the service level. Um, and then we would have normal response call response and that all gets triaged through dispatch. There is the idea of utilizing possibly Cal Poly Humboldt's dispatch um, because they have a full-time dispatch um, unit and very, very low call volume. So they were actually like, oh, this could actually work really well for us, because it's probably not super exciting to be a dispatcher of, not very many incidents. So dispatch is a pretty expensive proposition in and of itself, and it's something that Ferndale's been wrestling with a little bit as well. Um, as well as some of the other, like I said, there is some interest from some of the other cities as well. Just looking at consolidating resources, sharing resources, because like I said, right now everyone's just working against each other. Everyone's trying to steal each other's deputies, and we're not bringing more resources in. We're just reallocating them amongst systems, and it's really not healthy for anybody. So, thinking about maybe creating a larger consortium, so it doesn't become so as competitive, but we're all getting our needs met at the same time.
So with Ferndale taking on the liability side of
Mhm.
it, would we still do the payroll side of it?
No, no, it would all go through Ferndale.
Okay.
Yep, yep, yep. No, we would be essentially contracting for services with Ferndale
So
at
we
that
would
point.
have like a flat rate and
Hmm.
then they would, okay.
Yep, yep. And they would manage everything, take on the responsibility. Um, if we did the JPA, it would be the JPA would be the managing entity. And then they anticipate the discussion right now is that it would be this kind of overarching entity, and then Ferndale would be the service provider. And then we would all put in resources, and then they would manage those resources. So it would be somewhat similar to kind of how the sheriff does is, they're on a larger scope, they're feeding and
But we would have,
patrolling multiple cities and things.
but we
But
would have a designated deputy
mhm.
or three.
But in the
Yeah.
JPA, the liability, like if something happens in one city, doesn't it filter?
Well, it already does because we're in a pool.
Yeah,
So
you're in a
and
pool.
that's what Sierra is really concerned about is that right now Trinidad and Blue Lake have expanded the risk exposure to the whole pool by contracting with the sheriff and having to indemnify them. So that's what they're really concerned about is, you guys, whereas if the JPA was and Ferndale was the managing entity, Ferndale's already in the pool. So Sierra's already reviewing their protocols, they're reviewing their liability exposures, and they're making sure that their liability is contained to some extent through policy and training and all these things where they don't have that control or that capacity to work with an outside contractor like the sheriff since they're not part of Sierra. So they feel a lot more comfortable if we were working with Ferndale because they're already a known quantity. So
Do you happen to know how many officers Ferndale has right
I
now?
believe they have 5 full-time deputies and a full-time chief.
So this would allow them to hire 3 more and then we
Hmm.
work off that pool.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is really nice because it does get really hard in small systems to be able to accommodate people's vacation schedules or someone's sick and so this would give us a much larger pool to draw from too for resources as well.
And Ferndale has always had a reputation of their cops pulling people over for speeding. So that'll be good if they're up here. They definitely enforce that.
Yeah, I asked Chief Sly about that. He said that what he said they write very few tickets. He said they will pull you over, but they do write very few tickets. But they are, it's their community too. They said, we live right here. Most of their officers live in town or really close by, and they're really involved in the community. So they take a lot of pride in safety and being a participant. So he said, yeah, if you come flying through, we will pull you over. Most time they don't necessarily write you a ticket, but you're going to be on the side of the road for
Oh
it.
yeah.
So, which is fine with me. Pull some people over for speeding. It'd be great. 'Cause maybe it would, make people think twice. But,
Just
like
some,
I said, I really like their community oriented
mhm.
policing, thought. And Chief Sly was, very proud of, what they had and, very eager to, show it off to everyone. And, he was really, like I said, really excited about the CERT team and, just those connections to community. So,
Well, I hope everything works out.
yeah. I know you had some thoughts, Alex.
Uh, yes, I do. I would, I have doubts about all
Hmm.
local bureaucracies. Uh,
Yeah.
and the example of Blue Lake's prior experiment with its own police department, being, having been very familiar with it on two disastrous related times. Um, Ferndale is a well uh, governed city, so that is a great starting point.
Hmm.
It sounds like the police department is community oriented, which is they're great. long term, I still think that Lula. Let's go into this on the next subject. I had questions regarding the printout we received from the sheriff's department
Hmm.
that also touches on the indemnity, what's happening here. And so let's finish this one and then I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Did you guys have any thoughts about forming an ad hoc? I don't know. Do you want to be involved in this process? Like I said, I think this is one where, getting in at the very ground level to kind of help, if you're interested, like I said, I'd welcome,
Mhm.
some additional, or even if one of you guys wanted to participate, or you could participate as you were available. I just wanted to open that up to you guys too, just, because it is kind of a different type of concept. And
How's there a length of, like, if you enter into a JPA, is there a length of that, a contract length?
yeah, that's all kind of being looked at. So there's one other JPA that's been formed with some smaller entities that they're looking at. So Erike, who is our risk manager, he's the one really taking the lead on this. He's the deputy executive director of CIRA. But he's been great. He was the one who provided the report. He's been attending the meetings that we've had and the communications going back and forth. And so he's been doing a lot of research because it's, really the, like I said, Sierra is really concerned about the risk exposure through this contract and really wants to see us do something different. So they've been very aggressive and creative in their thought process to like look for other options or ideas. And this isn't a problem that's just, us. I mean, this is a problem across the nation, especially with small cities. A lot of smaller cities are contracting for services through the sheriff department, through their counties, and it's becoming more and more common, and it's becoming more and more problematic as you start to see some of that connection to community kind of drift away. Um, and there's just not a lot of people going into law enforcement right now either. So there's just a shortage all across the board.
The
And
sheriff's department supports
oh
this.
yeah, yeah.
This just
Mhm.
sort of
Yeah,
support.
Chief Sly and the sheriff are good friends, and Chief Sly ran this by Billy to begin with, and he was like, "Yeah, you should. They should go for it, because it's not going to get better, and the costs aren't going to go down. So, I don't. Yeah, this isn't like a secret by any means.
Cool. Anybody interested in ad hoc?
I'd be on it, but I don't feel uh, that I have enough experience with this commission to take it on my own. So
You
I,
do.
As the new chairman.
I mean,
Um, I'd be willing to work with you on it if you had
okay,
questions.
okay.
Great.
If you need help or support, I'll be there.
Yeah, and like I said, we're not going to be asking you to like, write up a draft JPA formation or anything, but as maybe if we're taking a tour of their facilities or, have questions or, I'd be happy for you guys to participate in some of that.
How about you keep me informed as to what you would like to see me do or anything and make it specific so I'm not wandering around lost.
I'll make sure you don't get lost.
Sure.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, you guys.
Let's open this up to public comment for item number 7. Jean? Jean Lynch?
It's good person, on the commission or the council, just an additional person on the ad hoc committee. If you're on about the JPA or.
Okay, I don't know how that works.
Uh,
Just how do you suggest that it works? I mean, like,
I have no idea.
how are you? What do you? I mean, I need more information. I don't understand what you're asking. We just did. So,
Oh, make sure you turn it on, press the button, about 2 seconds.
we're kind of low key.
We on?
There we go. Gene Lynch is on.
Hi.
So yeah, we just formed an ad hoc committee. Myself and Alex will
Right.
be
And
working.
so if you are going to have a person just in the public, not on the council or the commission, be part of looking at a JPA or item number 6 on the agenda,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, regarding law enforcement services, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Um, Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment?
Great. I'm not very good at this. Julie Christie, I'm glad I caught this. Item 7, correct? Um,
Yes.
okay. I was able to listen to the recording when Mandy gave the presentation for Ferndale's um potential contract. Is this
Yes,
still current?
that's what
Okay,
we're
thank
talking
you. I'm just concerned why we are not coordinating with the Rancheria. It seemed like a lot of expenditures and liability to go through this Ferndale Trinidad liaison. And I just don't understand why we're not using what's closest to home. And I'd like to maybe have more clarification on why that's not even being discussed, or maybe the implications that is preventing that from being discussed. I think it's more feasible and realistic for our city, is my thoughts on that.
Thank
Do
you.
you want me to answer that?
Do we want to finish public
Oh,
comment first, or? Yeah, go ahead. Just
yeah, so we actually did reach out to the Rancheria through the negotiation process with the sheriff, and the Rancheria didn't have the capacity or the the interest at the time to provide law enforcement services. So we did offer that and tried to explore that with Kevin Miller. I worked with Kevin for years in various areas. He's the chief of police at for the Rancheria, and he had been our deputy for years. But they didn't. They just declined to pursue that option with us. So that was offered, and we did try to pursue that fairly vigorously.
Let me ask a question. Is Floyd Stokes still involved with the Rancheria Police?
Floyd is to, I think, pretty limited. Kevin Miller's the chief. He's really great to work with. He's like I said, he's been a Blue Lake deputy for years, and then was with the sheriff as well, and was our captain, no, lieutenant for quite a long time. So very familiar with Blue Lake. But he's they have a very limited force and a very limited jurisdiction and scope. And I did propose that when we were first starting negotiations with the sheriff, because I've always felt the same way. Why have two entities essentially patrolling one tiny city? And obviously, the Rancheria's territory is really limited. It's basically the parking lot of the casino. And so, thinking about the ability for them to be able to do some patrols through town, and we could, contract with them for services. So that would give them some additional revenue to help with build their program. But that they weren't prepared at the time to be able to entertain that idea.
As long as Floyd Stokes has anything to do with the Rancheria, there are many folks in this town that do not want him to have any jurisdiction over this town.
Hmm.
So I would be very careful calling the Rancheria law enforcement as long as Floyd Stokes is involved with it in any way into cooperation with us on law enforcement. And
Yeah,
I would
I
help
guess.
organize that protest.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of history.
So
next comment.
Hello, Elise Fani. I'm Johnny come lately, your council liaison tonight. Again, I was not notified that your primary liaison wouldn't be here, so I decided to come by after class. But I think that Jean's idea of having a community liaison to this process is a great one. I think that's a nice way to reach out to the community and involve the community in this process. and I would totally support that. And I'm hoping that there's going to be an ad hoc from the council as well that's going to be part of this group. So hoping that's going to go forward. And I did want to share that recently at a council meeting, a community member raised the suggestion that each of the commissions have someone designated, and it doesn't have to be the same person every month, but has somebody designated to attend council meetings so that things that are going on with the council can be reported back to the commission in sort of the same way that your council liaison brings what you guys are doing back to the council and and vice versa. So that's just something to think about going forward that might help to kind of connect us all a little bit better.
Isn't that what we have a liaison for? To
But we don't,
Mhm.
well, and it's kind of a two-way thing. I think the idea is having more of a two-way street where like here we come in and we're gonna take what you're doing and report back to the council what you're up to, but there's nobody, from your group that's interpreting what we're doing at the council and bringing it back to you exactly. So I mean, it's and it's kind of two sets of eyes and ears and minds that are experiencing all of what's going on, and we all have different priorities and remember things differently and notice things differently and have one might have better ideas than the other. So it's just kind of an idea of having a little more involvement and having the commissions a little better connected with the council. So
right.
just something to think about.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any more comment on item 7, the law enforcement services? Okay, then we can move on to item 8, the sheriff call data review. Where's it at?
Yeah, so this is so we received this call data information from the sheriff. Margaret sends it over usually a couple times a month. I usually go through it and highlight all the calls that are not in the city because we have a very large sphere that is drawn around our jurisdiction to generate the call logs. So anything, and I don't know how it translates on yours, if you guys can even see the highlight. Probably. Can you?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I print in black and white.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty consistent. Josh McCall was not able to be at this meeting again tonight, but didn't seem to have any concerns that there was anything out of the ordinary. It seems kind of pretty standard when we look at, oh gosh, I left a whole slew of them off of here. How did that happen? Pretty standard number of calls. A lot of the calls that we have on here are patrol checks. So even when you see a call generated, it doesn't necessarily mean that there was actually something happening, but they do have areas where they do regular check-ins. And so sometimes you'll see it as a PC as a patrol check. Sometimes it's just a CAD doc, but you can kind of differentiate those. And it seemed going through it, I didn't really see anything that really stood out, any patterns. In the past, we've had some properties that seem to generate more calls than others, but I didn't really see anything in our area. Obviously, there's calls being generated that are, you know, seem to be frequent calls in other areas, but ours was pretty minor. Oh, you know what? And I apologize. It looks like I did this kind of backwards on one of the call sheets. It looks like I highlighted the blue light calls, and on the other one, I highlighted. Um, I got these at two different times, so yeah, it looks like the 1029 page to page 3. I highlighted the out of area calls, and then 930, 923. 826. I highlighted our calls. Sorry. That's why I was like, wow, how did I miss all these? This was really weird.
Well, I did the same thing when I got this. I went through and I dotted all the ones I could decipher as being in Blue Lake. It looks about 1/3
Hmm.
of the total, 2/3 outside of city limits. Does that have any play in the indemnification?
It shouldn't because the contract language is specific to the city of Blue Lake. So anything that happens outside of the contracted scope for the city should not have any liability for. So if they're, if they're responding to Glendale and something happens, the city, it should only be constrained to the jurisdiction of the city.
Okay, now looking through this report, I saw one arrest,
Hmm.
and I don't know whether that happened in the city or not. Okay. So the rest of these were checks, patrols that they contract with businesses or whatever
Hmm.
on that. How are they going to justify this big increase you're expecting with this type of report coming to us? I mean, to me, I would ask them to stop sending us everything outside city limits.
Yeah,
Put,
we've actually tried, and for some reason they haven't been able to extrapolate the data based upon a set boundary. So the city boundaries, because we've been asking for that. This was a big part of our negotiations with the sheriff was looking at the call data because there was a comment by the sheriff that the city of Blue Lake has over 2,000 calls a year for service, and we pushed back on that and said that's absolutely not true. And if you look at the reports, you'll see that, 60% plus of the calls that are coming through this report are not within the city of Blue Lake. So that was a big push for us. And, that helped to kind of, I think, bring things closer to the table for discussions. But that's a problem that we've had, from day one with this type of, call generation log. So we literally have to go and pick out which one. And this happens to Trinidad too. So Trinidad has the exact same report. They get calls on their report log from West Haven, from Stone, from the lagoon, Big Lagoon, all over. And so Gabe goes through every time Margaret sends it and he highlights the ones that, these are Trinidad's and they have about the same proportionality that we do that we're seeing.
I think this is a political football. And I think it would reverberate very well for the supervisors that we are basically what I perceive in this, and that the city has brought it up and they refuse, for whatever reason they haven't given you one yet, to give us just the city of Blue Lake calls. And the reason I think they're doing it is to hide how free Blue Lake is of anything serious crime. Because that way, if we were there's a Peaceful Hamlet used to be the name in the Arcata Union.
Hmm.
The Peaceful Hamlet, or the Arcata Eye. Your Peaceful Hamlet, you don't need those, a regular one officer a year, knowing Blue Lake well, and you got all the police protection we need. And so I think this is part of their scheme to highway rob Blue Lake and Trinidad. You have us covering the sheriff's county costs, okay, because we're the nearest deep pocket, supposedly. And I think that's what's going on here. And I would like to play political football with it because I think it's unifying for the citizens of Blue Lake. And also, I think it's something the supervisors don't particularly want to have to handle because what billing us for what's happening outside the city limits when the state robs us and now the county's robbing us. So that's a decision the council should take. But I think that's what's happening. And in politics, if you don't push back, you don't get anywhere when somebody's doing dirt to you. And so I would suggest that we start thinking about using these reports, you start questioning that increase that's coming at us. Whether we go with Trinidad or for Ferndale or not, it's going to be a good thing for this city to do, and for the citizens of this town in Trinidad, because that's what I think is going on here. Otherwise, why give us all this information we don't need? So I said my piece. The other thing you brought up, I had an idea, which I don't want it to interfere with the current plan, but I don't know, a couple of city council meetings back, I proposed that the city of Blue Lake get a public safety, uh, like a fire district, okay? And public safety district that we could have the same boundaries as a fire department. The biggest problem is that then your funding comes through property tax. So there has to be an increase on all property owners in the district. But then you're stable forever. Once that public safety commission would go through and we could see if Ferndale wanted to do it, Ferndale, Fieldbrook, Glendale, West End, wherever you go out there, everybody outside there would get a vote in setting up that public services district. But that would solve our law enforcement problems long term. And I just think uh, joint power agreements being subject to elections on a regular basis wouldn't have that stability that I think getting a services district, public safety services district would. So, but I don't want it to interfere with where we're going. We don't have time. That's a long process. But maybe the ad hoc committee or
Mhm.
something as we're, start looking at it. If I could, you put a word in for me with the chief, I could get, how many homes are in the district and what their tax rate is, and that would basically that would have a ballpark figure that would be getting if we got the votes for it, and I'd be willing to ad hoc that. So
Yeah, I think it's a time to think creatively. I think, we've been through a pretty strenuous process, and, Blue Lake has to look out for Blue Lake, and that's, got to be our main focus. And I think, as we see, just the cost of things, and, call volumes and response rates and times and interactions, I think Blue Lake and the smaller cities are more suited towards creative policing. And so I think considering it all should is great. Seeing what's available. A lot of communities do different things. Not everyone has a hardline approach to law enforcement, and so there is opportunities, and that's part of what the COP strategy is about. Through the community oriented policing strategies program, it really is giving resources to communities so they can look at their policing needs differently, because we're not all the same. So I'm excited that we do have some opportunities, because it feels a little bit like that we're not as backed into a corner. It's this has been a very hard road to go down, and it was really contentious, and it was very, very stressful, and there weren't a lot of outs. So it really was just trying to claw back as much as we could for the community, but knowing in the end we didn't really have any other options. So I think now having some options, thinking differently, having some support, and having some other communities supporting us as well in this partnership, is it's a little bit freeing in a few ways. So it's a good time to, throw ideas out. If you do some research and you find something in another community that they're looking at, or things that might work better. We've always said that prevention is worth more than response, really, because by the time they're responding, the crime's already been committed, the act's already done. And how many of these are solved, or, really dealt with? It's a report, if you even get that. So prevention, lighting, cameras, education, that's that really goes a long ways in a small community and stretches your dollars a lot further.
Anybody else have any comments on this? I'll open this to public comment. Item number 8.
Justin, I'm not sure if this is on. Thank you, Elise. So I appreciate the public comment on the call log. Mandy, I appreciate your time, even though you had 2 different copies going through what was Blue Lake and out of Blue Lake. Alex, thank you for coming on the commission. I do have to say that I don't concur not having those in the report. It is our sphere of influence. It tells us what's going on in town. It's a good dialogue for the community to know. A lot of residents are intermingled between, like, there's a few of us in the room that are intermingled between these divides of our sphere of influence. One thing the county is really pushing hard right now for is for Glendale and Philbrook to get their community development plans going. We might see a little bit different progress as we progress with that. One thing I would suggest for this commission is don't wait till it's time to pay the bill. We can go in as citizens and advocates for the budgeting of the supervisors and advocate a little bit heavier for our local county sheriff's districts for the funding that they do try and request every year. Other times, there's very many competing entities within that budgeting system that, in my opinion, reviewing it over several years, I feel like it is poorly misallocated. I feel like that public safety and infrastructure should always be our priority. And I feel like just us being representatives at our county budgeting really can have a big influence on how these smaller jurisdictions are allocated, what they're going to have to then be their costs and the understaffing. And I think if we could get more budgeting to our sheriff's department, we actually would see those benefits back here locally. But it will take us individuals stepping up to that or drafting a letter as a community or planning or public safety commission. So I appreciate the reports though. Keep them big. That's cool. Need to know what's going on. We all appreciate that. Thank you.
Julie, I think you're right. I should have suggested separating them out. Okay, but give the city of Blue Lake, since we're the one they're coming to their funding, the honest data that reflects Blue Lake, but that would be easy to do. They just don't want to do it for a reason. I mean, so, but thank you.
Go ahead, Gene.
I've been trying to figure out a JPA idea, and then working with Ferndale and Trinidad, and then coordinating the call data review would no longer be in existence because we would not be working with the sheriff's office. They would just go through Blue Lake to West End. There would be um, no mutual aid, I believe, with the JPA, or if we're working with somebody else, the officer that would be here would be just specifically for our little area. Um, so I'm not sure that that would, being on an ad hoc committee, that's one of the questions that I would ask as a community member, is how that works for law enforcement in this area when you just have a deputy within the city of Blue Lake that does not respond across the bridge to Hatchery Road. The questions like that I would think of in a ad hoc situation.
Then we'd get the county to identify our cop.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
The county wants Blue Lake to identify the deputies for their actions. So if we have, there's mutual aid among law enforcement
All law enforcement has mutual aid.
all over. So if Arcata gets the call over in West End,
What's the cost for that?
don't know.
I don't believe
That's
there's a
another ad
cost
hoc committee
allocation.
member question. What would be the cost if you're not contracting with the sheriff and you're contracting and you have your own service? what would be the cost to have mutual aid? And all of those questions, like taking someone to jail, what's the cost? All of that. That to me, that's part of the process of trying to figure out.
Certainly is.
Yeah. And my idea on this is to take the expenses for the sheriff's department, expenses for a separate uh, police department, and look at the total uh, needs for each one. Uh, and then you can judge which one would be the best cost effective method.
I mean,
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Yes.
So I think, Alex, your questions about the call log is pertinent, and I believe this issue's been brought up numerous times over the last year or so, and because the sheriff provides law enforcement to the whole county, and they break their response logs up into regions. Blue Lake is included in a greater region, and so um, I do believe that they have expressed that they've looked at their programming to see if they could break it out, and it wasn't possible in their programming. Um, Nonetheless, I personally don't feel there's any nefarious um, or manipulative reasons that they're producing a call log that looks like this. And I think that it would be wise um, to have our public discussions and commission meetings reflect a cooperative um, demeanor, just because we really want to work with the sheriff. I think it's, and I think they're doing their best for us. My own experience with the deputies and all the information I have. So I just like to share that with you. And I hope we can all work together in a positive way to do for Blue Lake what Blue Lake needs. Thank you.
two responses.
Can I say something real quick? So in order to keep structure, we're supposed to go through all public comment first before we don't do back and forth stuff. We're supposed to just get all public comment, and then we can answer all the questions at that point. So that's so. But now we're at the point. Is there any other public comments? Then we can answer. You can go ahead and answer your question.
These forms come with City of Blue Lake at the top. It could be Blue Lake sphere of influence. It isn't. It's City of Blue Lake. So that's one point. The other thing is the behavior of the deputies is not the bureaucracy. This is the bureaucracy. I've always gotten along well with law enforcement personnel in the streets. Bureaucrats are another story. So if they change this to Blue Lake sphere of influence, which it is, my complaint wouldn't stand. But if this is titled City of Blue Lake up at the top, and 1/3 of the calls are within city limits, and the sheriff has been approached on it, the city manager said, the sheriff's department has been approached on it, and hasn't agreed to provide the city with what the city asked for. That's where it is. It's the sheriff's department that is not cooperating with the city. City of Blue Lake, we're asking this just for the city of Blue Lake. I want it for the county too. It's not hard. They know what the city of Blue Lake is. It's a bureaucratic decision that's going on in putting this out. Bureaucratic decisions have motives behind them. If it's another motive, they can tell us. But it should be brought up to them so they tell us and give us that information.
I know I spoke once. Can I speak again?
Go ahead. I'll allow it this time.
Um,
You have to step up to the mic, though. You have to step up to the microphone. Oh, we got to be transparent.
Thank you. Just a reminder, this is an advisory committee
Mm.
to the council. And I would advise the commission, safety commission, maybe to have an agenda item and bring this in front of the council as an agenda item. And it can't just stay here that you are an advisory commission
I
to,
was going to ask it to be agenda so our next
thank you.
meeting. Okay.
Any other discussion on this? Let's move on to agency check-in. We don't have any representatives for any of these agencies tonight. So we can, I guess we'll move on to item 10. Reports from liaison and staff.
I already told you all what I had.
I think Mandy went through most of hers too,
Yeah, I
huh?
think that we hit on most projects. It's rainy season. It's getting darker earlier. We're going to be facilitating some after school activities, trying to get Prash Hall opened as more of a teen tween social club a few days a week so the kids have a place to go and something to do. Trying to just keep Prash Hall open as much as possible. We talked about the bike park being paved this week. Um, Other than that, I don't think I really have much else for you guys.
Okay. Do we do public comment on that? Or it's not really
I don't think you do have to do
not for
public comment on
reports.
reports.
Okay. Any questions for staff or? Okay. Future agenda items. So I have down the flood issues that Karina brought up. You would like
Ad hoc committees, JPA, and I call Public Safety District. If somebody has a better name, that's fine by me.
so a report from the ad hoc committee on the police services.
If we have a report, I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
kind of
We'll
just
see how far we
work
get.
it out. Just to keep it there, so we ought to have something going on.
Okay. Any other future agenda items? Gene?
Like I know I wrote one down.
Mhm.
There were, Jean again, and there were a few comments about a neighborhood watch and uh, for community response as far as forming a new neighborhood watch or the pods or something to get more eyes on the area. Um, and I thought maybe that could come up as an agenda item to be discussed again.
Okay. We've tried, and I've reached out to, it's not Marie Ruth, right? No,
No, she's
got
Scope,
um,
Ginger
Ginger
Campbell.
Campbell numerous times, and I don't know, she's not.
Well, Ginger's with the sheriff's department, and again, that goes back to whether you wanted to uh, form a JPA or such. And so the Neighborhood Watch program itself is nationwide, and if somebody wanted to have a neighborhood watch program and not involve the sheriff's department, that's something that can be done. Ginger herself, because I worked with Ginger, is the one that expressed that to me. Uh, Anybody can form a neighborhood watch. You don't definitely do not have to go through the sheriff's department. So it's just a thought.
You're asking for a future agenda item
Yes,
to discuss
yes, I think
forming
the
neighborhood
community
watches?
would be happy to see that.
Okay. It's on our work plan too to promote neighborhood watch
And pods,
pods
or
and
whatever they want to
stuff
call
like
that, but
So,
a community,
so it's within our scope. So yeah, we can do that.
I know some folks have said that we don't have a neighborhood watch program because we have the pod program, or something.
I haven't heard that.
No,
No?
that's not true.
No.
Okay.
We have both.
Okay. Well, I don't guess maybe there's no pod in my neighborhood, but I've never, until I was on the council a couple of years ago, I never heard of anybody talking about pods. And maybe it's skipped a couple neighborhoods or something, but it'd be interesting to see a map and see where pods are, and maybe we can strengthen that program in some way so that everybody has an opportunity to participate in that. Or I don't know. I don't really know much about the pods. I know that some folks have I've talked to have said, "Oh yeah, we have a pod in our neighborhood, but we have a potluck once a year or something like that." But there isn't one in mine. So anyway, I just like to learn more about that
Okay.
and maybe see some mapping of it or something.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I think that's it on that. So if there's no other questions, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Well, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Mhm.